You mentioned Omax twice. I didn't have him on the outline until lower, so we have to talk about him. You mentioned he's a Jason Kidd player. I think he shot, I saw, was like 41.8% on NBA range threes last year too. So is that like part of the appeal? It's like you just want to surround Kyrie and Luka with a bunch of 3-and-D guys. And right now, I guess the only 3-and-D guy on this roster would be Grant Williams. Like, do you consider like throwing Josh Green in that conversation like a little bit? So is that the appeal of Omax?
That is the appeal. And there's also, so I've gone to Summer League every year for 10 years. I have watched some horrific Dallas
That's a lot
Mavericks.
of Vegas, by the way.
Well, and just the Mavericks have not ever been good. They were good in Summer League. The year that they had Jalen Brunson, Luka couldn't play. Brunson was so bad at Summer League, I thought he was a bust. Like, that was kind of the root of my Brunson disbelief. He was awful at Summer League. And I watched so much bad basketball. The good parts stand out in my mind, so perhaps I'm overrating him. But during Summer League, I saw a guy that was much bigger than I realized, much stronger than I realized, and had a willingness to do stuff with the basketball. And so when I see a guy, lots of like, he moved off ball real well, attacked well. He gave the guy who the Pacers drafted at 8, what's his name? Shoot.
Jarris Walker.
He gave Jarris Walker the business. I mean, absolutely took his lunch money in a game. And I'm probably overrating that sort of stuff, but I just haven't seen it from a Mavericks player before. Okay. And so I think that he's going to be a guy and I sort of compared him to Josh Green last night, Josh Howard, 2003 Dallas Mavericks draft pick, who came into a very good team and not that the Mavericks are a good team now, but as a rookie earned his minutes in like a garbage man way, getting offensive rebounds, like playing hard defense. And like with a team with Luka and Kyrie, that's all you need. You just need a guy willing to do that stuff. And so you throw all those and everything else. And I find myself unreasonably excited about him. Plus the fact that the Celtics lost their minds on draft night when the Mavericks snuck up and took him, because they traded back 3 times after the Mavericks took him. That's how flustered they were by that pick.
Seriously. Maybe this will be another Desmond Bane situation all over again. Different, obviously, because that was the actual Celtics pick. But and look, the threes he's going to get from Luka and Kyrie are just like, they're going to tee him up. And so I think that's a reason to buy into his shooting. And I think to an extent that can streamline your offensive development, where it's, hey, we need you to do X, Y, and Z on defense, but you're just gonna fan out and dot the arc on offense. And like, these guys are going to tee you right up. So I'm officially, after listening to you, way more excited to watch Omax than I was coming into this podcast.
You'll see him, and I think you'll understand what I mean, where it's just like NBA players, and this doesn't come across in TV. A lot of NBA players are very thin. And to the point where it's like, wow, these guys like Dirk Nowitzki and Tyson Chandler were so dang skinny. I mean, I weigh 240 pounds. I'm 6'3". Dirk's 7 foot. He weighed 240 pounds. It's like, there's just a different body type. So when I see a guy, that's why like LeBron just stands out. Why, Zion Williamson obviously just stands out. Omax has shoulders that look like a linebacker. And I'm addicted to those kind of like tough dude traits. I could be completely off base, but I find myself excited.
They did a lot of other stuff over the offseason, and we generally, I will say, the only thing I was uncomfortable with about their offseason was just that 2030 swap, just the idea that you've kind of given up control of like those 2 back-end picks in 29 and 30. I really liked their offseason overall. Of the other moves that they made, like, was there anything that stood out that you really liked, that you were concerned about? What were just your general impressions of their offseason, looking at it in sum?
Oh, man. So the fact that so for everyone who may have forgotten, they they were just awful from March 1st on. That can't really be properly. You need to go look at like their game log. They were awful. So the notion that as a 10 seed that they could have somehow made the finals like Miami or the Lakers nearly did was insane to me, because I don't think they won 2 games in a row for a month. So they slid in. And they tanked. They did tank. Let's make that clear. But they would have been lit up had they been in the playoffs. So everyone's killing them, understandably, for tanking, why the Mavericks got killed. But, everything. Damian Lillard, tanking for the 4th year in a row is somehow noble. I don't understand it. They turned that 10th pick that they ended up with into they moved off of the Blazers contract, Bertans, which was a horrendous contract.
Yeah, that was bad.
They picked Derrick Lively, who I was a little on, but I've grown to be interested in. Then they traded into the first round and got Holmes, Richaun Holmes from the Kings into the trade exception they created from moving on from Lavi and Laser, and then took Maxence Prosper. So they added a big guy to the rotation who's basically been sitting on ice for over a year. No good.
I think he could still play, by the way.
I have no idea how good he is, but he's such a weird player. He has a push shot from like the YMCA from the 50s.
He's shooting like 60. By the way, he's shooting like 65+% on those the past 3 years.
I can't wait to see Luka. I can't wait to see him and Luka operate in a pick and roll because it's going to be from such a different space than Luka's operated with other guys. So that part's going to be fun. Obviously ended up with
I saw someone, I thought it was a bonkers take, said that Luka's never had like a lob threat before, and
He's only had Dwight Powell. Yeah. Is the thing.
And I think Richaun Holmes gives you sort of like a multi-level, like a 2-level pick and roll threat because he has that push shot and he can also be that threat at the actual rim. And so that's why I'm very intrigued by his fit on this roster.
He might be terrible at defense too, but I mean, anything to make their offense a little more variable could be fun. They also signed in what could be a very interesting deal, Dante Exum to a 1-year deal, but I think they have his bird rights. They could always re-sign him. And Exum played astonishingly well overseas the last year. He has apparently developed a shot, which I didn't, is bizarre. After tearing his ACL, he was out of the league. He looks more like a small forward to me because he's like 6'5" and 220 pounds.
Especially on this team, he looks like a small forward.
Right. So it's just it's interesting. So it's like those were kind of the highlights. None of them really, all of them together, I really liked because they were trying to build something different within the team structure. And so, will it work? I don't know. But like I said, from 2019 to 2023, they had 5 or 6 players that were the same in the rotation, and that's just not going to be the case this year.
So when you're kind of looking at these, like, I'll call them back end of the offseason guys, I'm so intrigued by how the secondary, like, perimeter rotation shakes out. And so who like plays a bigger role on this team when it comes down to Jaden Hardy, Seth Curry, Dante Exum, like that trio?
That's an interesting one. A lot of the scuttlebutt I've heard just from talking to people is that when you look at sort of the minute distribution, Hardy might, a lot of people expected Hardy to take a second-year growth, like step in the right direction. I don't see where the minutes are coming from because prior to the offseason, the Mavericks' best 4 players were all guards. You have Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Josh Green, Jaden Hardy. Hardy, I think, is a particularly talented scorer. He has the body to where I think he could become a pretty good defender if he wanted to be. Not very good on offensive playmaking, kind of shockingly bad. At least
his handle is like very loosey goosey.
It's like for a guy who's a point guard, and like he doesn't really have a lot of functioning point guard skills. But that's okay. You don't need him on this team. I think Seth Curry is a break in case of emergency type guy. They got him for a steal of a deal. I also think the Mavericks would have tried and will continue to try to trade Tim Hardaway Jr. because he and Seth Curry's skills kind of overlap. You want a guy willing to take the shots that Luka gets you. But Seth Curry also has a history of kind of maddening injury issues. So it's, I'm counting on 45 games of Seth Curry. Exum's kind of the X factor for me to where if he makes a difference, he gives Kid another look. And so that's the guy I'm kind of most interested in all of this.